Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, been under the weather for a few days. I feel human today. I'm probably about a 95% back to normal. We had snow over this past weekend, and I was not able to get out and get photos of the first snowfall that we had this year because of not feeling great. Went out this morning. There's still some snow on the ground, so got some photos of stuff on the ground with snow. So today, I want to talk about fast lenses and bokeh and why people used fast lenses back when I got into photography. Because it wasn't about bokeh. It wasn't about shallow depth of field. The reason people got fast lenses is because film was slow. Especially if you shot transparency film. You know, you'd be shooting on Kodachrome 64. So 64 ASA back then became 64 ISO. And Fujichrome Velvia, which I think, was that rated at 50? I think it was 50. A lot of people shot it at 40. So not fast. And if you went to faster slide films, like even 200 speed Ektachrome, Kodachrome 200, you started getting a fair amount of grain. Wildlife shooters would shoot faster slide film for obvious reasons. So, and just, you know, you accepted the fact that there was going to be grain in the photos. The camera that I got when I graduated from college in 1979 was a Canon AT1, which was essentially a manual AE1. And it came with the kit lens, the Canon FD f1.8 50 millimeter lens. Canon had an f1.4 50 millimeter lens, which of course was quite a bit more money. So, you know, if you needed that extra, half a stop, you could go to that. But I never heard anybody talk back in those days about bokeh, which is the quality of the background blur, or foreground blur, really. The quality of the blur, the characteristic of the blur, not just shallow depth of field, but what that blur looks like. So it wasn't until the 90s, and at this point I'm working at the stock agency, and I decided to buy a Canon A2E. That was a plastic fantastic camera. Actually, it was a really good camera. It had the eye control autofocus and a 24 to 10, not a 24, a 28 to 105 millimeter kit lens that it came with. Somewhere in there, I got a hold of Canon's lens catalog. This was a paper catalog, and it had, I mean, it was a pretty big piece of work, and it had all of their lenses in there and descriptions. And in that catalog was the first time I ever saw mention of the quality of the blur. And they didn't use the word bokeh because, although the word existed, because it's a derivation of a Japanese word, you would think that maybe Canon would have used it. I remember reading, I can't remember which lens it was, but a little blurb said, "Special attention has been paid to the out-of-focus rendering of this lens." So Canon and other manufacturers were starting to pay attention to how a lens rendered blurred areas. And then Mike Johnston, who I think was the editor of Photo Techniques, he lived in Oak Park for a while. He still has a blog, The Online Photographer, if you want to check that out. He's the one who, he didn't coin the term bokeh. He essentially Americanized it. So it was a Japanese word, kind of means blur, and he Americanized it. It was spelled B-O-K-E. He put an H on the end so that people would realize that it was like two syllables and not just bokeh. So bokeh, meaning the quality of the background blur. Which brings us to today where, number one, digital sensors can shoot up to, I mean, full frame sensors can shoot up to 25,600 ISO with really no trouble at all. So the need for fast lenses isn't there as far as having to use a fast lens to be able to use a fast shutter speed. Because you can crank the ISO up on most full-frame cameras today to achieve that goal. So what's happened is fast lenses have now morphed to where it's not about the shutter speed, although, I mean, it can be. In sports, it's obvious that you want a fast lens even with digital sensors. But this mania, dare I say, about bokeh and the quality of the background blur or foreground blur. My opinion is that bokeh is one of these things that photographers care about. Not all photographers, but a lot of photographers care about, and nobody else does. If you want to see people's eyes glaze over, talk to a non-photographer about bokeh. If you're good at it, maybe they won't glaze over. But, you know, micro contrast, that's another one. That'll glaze people's eyes over. I think it's kind of an overblown thing. I think that most people, when they look at a photograph, are not going to care that much about the quality of the background blur. I mean, if it's obviously bad, really jagged and noisy, maybe they will. But I have had one time in my life when somebody looked at a photo of mine and commented on the blur. And I was given a slideshow. And I showed an image which was taken with the original Canon EF 100 millimeter macro, which was, I mean, it was a very sharp lens. It had a very loud autofocus motor. It wasn't USM. That version came later, but it did have really nice autofocus rendering. And I was given a slideshow, and they were commenting. It was a photograph of a flower, and you know, it was sharp on the flower and the background was blurred, and it was sort of a watercolor background effect, and they were like, wow, that's really interesting the way that background is. That is the one time somebody has actually mentioned this. I'm not knocking it if you're really into this stuff. If you're really into, you know, having great bokeh, have at it. It's a free world, mostly. For now. Lusting after these super fast lenses to get the shallowest, best depth of field, I mean, the best bokeh you can. I just find this to be, I don't know, just not my idea of a good time. Well, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm sure some people are just really into this and are going to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's fine. We can agree to disagree. So feel free to leave your thoughts below. If this was interesting or useful to you, hey, bop that like button. That's big help to me. And I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link down in the description. Also have a link to Growing Community Media, which is the newspaper I do work for. The newspaper group, it's a nonprofit, so if you want to support independent journalism, you can find that link down there, and just a few bucks helps out big time, and they can continue to pay me. I'm Todd Banner. I'll see you next time.